was there any moment when you said, like, this isn't working, I'm going to quit? Like, and how you overcame that moment?
Well, I hate to disappoint you, but the answer's no.
Oh,
I think the key reason is that the whole way through, I really stuck to my guns in terms of being really clear about what the publication is and is not.
hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. My name is Oren. Today I am interviewing James Burns. He is the editor-in-chief of SUPERJUMP. That is a publication that is focused on video games. This was a lot of fun. As a writer, I had a lot of interest in what he had to say, and also as a writer on the Medium publication, which I have been writing from 2019. Anyway, this was a lot of fun. Without further ado, enjoy the interview. Thank you so much for being here, James Burns. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, just trying to stay warm here in the middle of winter in Australia at the moment.
Oh, wow. It's winter in Australia?
It is middle of winter, yes, bitterly cold. We've just had our coldest day of the year just a couple of days ago. Not coldest day, longest, shortest day. I'll get there in the end.
Okay, I want to start with the beginning. Tell me about life before SUPERJUMP. Who was James Burns then?
Probably a frustrated creator, I think. I had worked, so I'd kind of had this, I guess you'd call it like a tangential relationship with the video game industry for a while. I did high school work experience at Nintendo Australia, which convinced me that I wanted to be involved with games. And then I'd done a little bit of freelance work for a few years in the early 2000s for gaming magazines that were based here. But that was kind of always a side gig, I guess. Like it was never, I was never able to really make it a full-time career, even though that's what I wanted. So I kind of like, I guess I kind of fell into a whole bunch of other jobs, and I didn't really have a very clear idea of what I wanted to do or where I wanted to go. And I ended up in a career path that was completely couldn't be more outside games. Like I was working in health technology, which was a really interesting and fulfilling thing to do. So I was very fortunate to do that. But I always had that that voice in the back of my mind that was kind of saying like, you need to do something with this, like with your interest in games beyond just playing them, right? Like you need to be creating something, you need to be involved in some way. And I was never like, I always felt like I never quite had the talent for engineering or programming or anything. So I couldn't really, get into the industry that way. So in the end, I came back to writing. That's what kind of led me back to SUPERJUMP.
Okay, so let me ask you this. What's the pivotal moment when you decide I'm going to start writing in a publication? I'm going to call it SUPERJUMP. What was that process like? What's that moment?
Well, I think for me, I don't think there was one single moment. It was kind of a slow burn. Like I'd been exploring different options probably for a couple of years in terms of, what should I do? How should I set it up? Like what platform should I use? What should the tone of voice be? And I think one of the things that kind of stopped me progressing it for a long time was that I either needed to kind of use some sort of existing blogging platform, like, I don't know, Tumblr or something like that, that was just, you could just switch something on and go. Or like use WordPress or try and build my own thing or work with someone to build something new. And I just never quite I was never quite happy with the like the DIY kind of blogging tools. And I also never really had the I guess the the skill set or the time really to set up a WordPress or something like that. And I didn't want all the headaches that came with it in the end. So the thing that really kind of convinced me to actually get started was discovering Medium, because Medium kind of in about the 2016, 2017 period, I think Medium was kind of aimed at doing something a little bit different, like they were that, yes, they were kind of a blogging platform for individuals, but they had this whole angle around establishing publications and having an editing process. And at that time they had started to build a staple of really brilliant internal publications as well that were kind of demonstrating what you could do. So I thought, okay, this is like super low barrier to entry, don't need any technical skills whatsoever to do this, which is great for me. But it also has that ability to set up a publication and kind of have an editorial layer. It's got a little bit more cachet than just kind of a private blog, I guess. So it was really, yeah, I think that was the point when I found the right tool or found the right platform to do it.
Did you start by self-publishing, or did you aim directly to the publication feature?
So I started directly with the publication feature, but I mean, initially, like I was the only author and was getting, like 5 reads per story or whatever. So it was like basically my mum, me, and a friend, reading my stories. But that was okay, because I kind of just thought, well, anyone can start something, right? Like anyone can just kind of get the first couple of pieces out there. But the real test is, can you build a process around it, and can you have consistency, and will you keep at it? Will you stick with it? Or will it be like, the instrument you went to learn in high school that you just dumped after a few months? So I was kind of testing myself to see if I'd stick with it.
Okay, so that's a good segue to talking about the beginning of SUPERJUMP and the challenges that you faced along the way. So can you tell me a bit what was tough in the beginning? What did you need to overcome in terms of like challenges for the publication?
I think the biggest thing was building a team, because there were already a bunch of pretty established publications there. I mean, there wasn't really, when we started, I don't remember there really being a dedicated gaming publication on Medium. Now there are a few, but at that point there really weren't any. And it also wasn't really a big topic on Medium either. I mean, it never really has been, but certainly at that time it wasn't. So I think I knew that if I wanted to actually build a publication, it was going to need to be more than me. Like I was going to need to be able to attract like-minded people who kind of believed in the mission of what we were doing and wanted to work with me as well, because of course initially we didn't have any other editors or anything. It was just me. So like I was it. If you didn't want to work with me, then it wasn't going to happen.
Okay. So yeah, how was the process of team building? I guess were you like bringing people from Medium, like writers from the platform?
Yeah, so they were all, and really most of the writers now that are working with us now were originally people that either we discovered, I discovered, or one of the editors discovered on Medium, or they found us and were interested in what we were doing. Um, I think the point where I kind of realized that maybe there's something to this is when I think I got an email from Mitchell Wolf, who hasn't written for us in a while. He's doing incredible things in at Respawn in the game industry now. Um, but he had written a piece, this quite long, very thoughtful, very emotive piece about, I think it was about Banjo Kazooie and his, not just his memory of the game, but the way that uh, his experience of the game was through his relationship with his grandfather.
Oh.
And it was something that they bonded over. And he sent it to me, I think, because from memory, I think he'd shopped it around a bit on Medium, or he'd sent it to someone else and they'd rejected it. I can't quite remember what had happened, but uh, he'd had an experience with another publication that wasn't very positive, and I think he kind of understood what I was trying to do, and asked if I would publish it. And of course, I mean, I wanted to grow and I wanted more content, but um, I also wanted to set a high bar and not just accept anything. It had to kind of fall within the tone of voice that we were going for. And this piece just completely floored me. Like, it was beautifully written. It was incredibly emotive. It reminded me of my relationship with my dad and the way video games were actually something that um, kept our relationship together during some very difficult times. And really, once we published that first piece, yeah, Mitchell and I started talking quite a lot. He continued just producing like story after story that were just absolute gold. Like, every single one was just a beautiful piece of writing. Um, and I think the two of us, we started to get a bit of momentum going, and that started to attract more people just naturally.
That's amazing. The actual, like, I think I can relate a lot to what you said about video games and the relationship with your dad. For me, it wasn't with my dad. It was actually with my brothers. I have two older brothers, and as kids, we would play something that the young generation would not recognize today. A game called Jones in the Fast Lane, and it was a game where you had to make a career and get a job and pay money and all that, like live the life. And you didn't have like a multiplayer. You had to sit with your brother on the computer, and each of you would have to use the keyboard when it's your turn. So that's like a really good bonding experience when you're very young. But yeah, that's amazing story of getting that initial connection and then growing from there. That's amazing. Okay, so you got writers, you built your team. How did you grow in terms of followers? Did you do marketing, or did you just rely on Medium's discoverability?
So a couple of ways. I did experiment a little bit with marketing on social media, especially Facebook, and that was okay. I mean, it would bring us traffic, but the thing I was always wary of, and I use this term a lot, I was always wary of sugar hits. So this idea that, okay, you can kind of, it's fairly trivial to kind of boost your numbers in a particular week or month, right? But the real question is, are those people actually sticking around? Like, are you building a relationship with them and they're actually they're staying with you because they love what you do. And that's a very difficult thing to do, especially considering that on Medium, I mean, if anyone that's watching this isn't familiar with Medium from a publication standpoint, you really have very limited access to data and to audience insights and that sort of thing. So it can be hard to draw conclusions around like what was successful and what wasn't. And you don't really have an idea about, you know, how much of your audience are like you know, repeat viewers that are coming back again and again. So that was always a little bit tricky. But I think the thing that really made a difference for us was, and I think it was in 2019 that this happened, maybe, Medium started to partner with publications that they didn't own. So they started a partnership program that was specifically for publications. And so we had a partnership manager from Medium that worked with us. At that time, by 2019, we were far and away the biggest gaming publication on the platform. Again, not that there were many of us. So that was kind of easy. And during that period, like they really did help us grow. So they gave us the ability, like they gave us extra administrative tools on the platform that allowed us to self-curate our content on the platform. So that just means that we could, I could pick up a story and I could distribute it across relevant topics myself. And that had previously been something that only Medium staff, internal staff, could do. And that made a huge difference. That allowed us to leverage that huge Medium audience and start kind of pushing our content in front of more people in a really proactive way. And Medium also, we experimented a little bit with setting up freelance budgets for SUPERJUMP as well. So we had a few months there where we were supported by Medium in terms of funding to bring in some freelance games journalists that were, some of them were on Medium, but some of them were folks that were like big names in games journalism that weren't on Medium, and we now had a budget that we could start to attract them and bring them onto the platform. So I think that was probably the thing that made the biggest difference, was that partnership with Medium in terms of growth. But other than that, really, it was just organic. Like, you know, it's like pushing a snowball downhill, right? Like as it starts, it picks up speed, it gets bigger and bigger. The more riders you get, those riders bring their followers along as well. So you get this like multiplier effect as your base of contributors grows. So that was really benefiting us a lot.
Did you see any benefits from publishing on Medium in regards to Google SEO?
That's a little bit hard to say just because of the data issue I mentioned earlier. I'm going to say probably yes.
Okay.
Probably yes. I think just because, you know, you just being associated with a fairly high profile domain probably naturally helps. I'm not really an SEO expert, but yeah, I think being part of Medium kind of meant that we were sort of swept along in Medium's current as they were doing things, whether it was related to us or not. We tended to kind of benefit from, we were kind of in their wake, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. The reason I ask it is because there's this notion that writing on Medium, or even just syndicating your content to Medium, is giving you a boost of juice from Google SEO and all that, in terms of like more traffic and more So I always like to ask people who actually have experience with the platform, like I had, in terms of like whether this really worked for you or not.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would say is like we had a few stories over the years that basically went viral, I think largely thanks to Medium. I mean, they were getting, we had a story that got nearly 200,000 views and it was spiking our numbers and everything was going crazy. And I think I wouldn't entirely put that down to Medium, but I think Medium was a big factor in that. But again, I like that's great, but I was always a little bit wary when I would see those sudden unusual spikes in numbers because I thought, well, most of those folks have probably just they've clicked on a link, they're looking at kind of a viral story, but then that's it. There's no like deeper engagement with our publication, and they're not going to be interested in sticking around.
Yeah, because they're not logged in, so they can't like clap or something to show you.
Yeah,
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 it's a lot of like guessing game.
yeah.
Okay, so I do want to ask a kind of a difficult question before we move on to like Super Jump's present day and all that. Your journey on Medium and all that was we pictured it in sort of like a very like linear way of like saying we did this and we got that and we all that. But I do want to ask you, was there any moment when you said like, this isn't working, I'm going to quit, like, and how you overcame that moment?
Well, I hate to disappoint you, but the answer's no.
Oh, that's
No,
awesome.
I never had that feeling. I think because I know what you mean in that hindsight is always 2020, and when you look back on your trajectory of a project that's grown, it's easy to look back and go, well, it was just written in the stars. It was just destined to work perfectly, and all that sort of thing. Um, but I think, yeah, that there was never really a moment where I felt like I wanted to stop or throw in the towel. Mostly because I think the key reason is that the whole way through, I really stuck to my guns in terms of being really clear about what the publication is and is not. And
Hmm.
I think
Okay.
if you look at games media, like I think your metrics, the metrics you choose kind of drive your behavior, right? Like they kind of drive the decisions you make. And if you're in games media if that's your day job, if that's your main gig, then you have to have a publication that's making money to support you and to support your team. And making money in media, particularly games media, is extremely difficult without chasing those constant sugar hits all the time and racing to meet review embargo deadlines and dealing with advertisers and all of the kind of crap that I don't want to deal with and will not deal with. So,
Amazing.
but I've got the luxury of saying that because I haven't relied on SuperJump to live. So, in that way, I've been able to kind of make it what I want and be high and mighty on on my principles because I haven't had to really make those kinds of tough decisions.
So, in the apex of Super Jump on Medium, you had like a lot of things that you needed to adhere to in terms of like your auto curation, and Medium as a platform. Do you feel like being on Medium in some way restricted your creativity or your growth?
It definitely did in some ways. I mean, every decision, every pathway has pros and cons that you have to deal with. And the big positives that Medium gave us were that we could start something with no cost, no upfront investment. We could basically like MVP it, right? We could from a product management perspective, like you could put something out there, you could test it and see if it works, with super low barrier to entry, and get immediate access to this massive audience and immediate access to reasonably robust kind of tools to manage your publication. But of course, yes, the downside is, we didn't really have the freedom to design our publication the way that we would have liked. We were really limited in terms of, I guess I'd call them like organizational tools. Like as you grow and get bigger and bigger and more writers are contributing, you now kind of you've got like a queue of work that needs to be edited. You're talking to dozens and dozens of writers. You've got to find a way to communicate and stay in sync and all of that sort of stuff. So we had to start looking for off-platform solutions to deal with that. But I mean, that was just, I knew that was part of the deal. And I figured that we were going to go down one of two pathways. Like either we were going to go down a pathway where Medium would strategically lean into publications and actually partner with us in a more serious way, that would actually mean maybe being able to hire a team and actually, kind of potentially become part of Medium officially. I can say all of this now because it's history. That was one pathway. The other pathway was where we did go, which was, Medium kind of leaning more toward its relationship with individual writers rather than publications. And then that kind of meant that there was just sort of no space for us anymore. Like we were going to have all the restrictions, but we weren't going to realize any additional benefit. So that was that fork in the road where we kind of, we could kind of see the writing on the wall, and then had to make some decisions.
Okay. That is a really important point that I wanted to touch on. Like, over the years, Medium has done a lot of changes. Individual writers like me also felt it. A lot of big publications left Medium. P.S. I Love You, The Ascent, just to name a few. What was like the last straw where you said like, okay, we need to find a different solution. We need to leave. And like, let's talk about that before we talk about Ghost, which I really, really like.
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think we'd had, over our time with Medium, we'd had two different partnership managers assigned to us, and they were both, I have to say, and I said this in my goodbye post on Medium, they were both exceptional. I mean, not just talented people, but lovely human beings and wonderful supporters and advocates for SUPERJUMP. So I'm forever in their debt. They're amazing. But it started to become clear with the second partnership manager, I can't remember the exact timing. It would have been probably through last year, I guess, at various points. It just started to become clear that Medium's strategy was changing. They had established a lot of plans with publications and partnering with publications, and there was a lot of promise there. But they decided to pivot to this kind of new model that they're working through now. And I mean, we had fairly advanced notice about that, I guess. It was becoming clear last year that that's kind of where it was going. And so we then got to a point, it was probably closer to the end of last year, where we lost our partnership manager. Our partnership ended formally with Medium.
Mm.
So we'd actually been with a partnership contract with them for a period of time, and that formally ended. So at that point, it was kind of, like as I said before, the writing was on the wall, and my feeling was, look, the status quo in terms of our ability to operate on Medium will probably be here for a period of time, it could even be a couple of years. But given what they had said about their strategy and where they were going, I knew that I didn't want to be in a situation where it became an emergency for us, if you know what I mean, where we suddenly got like a sunset announcement or something about publication features, and it was just going to be ripped out from under us. I wanted to act well before that happened, so that we could have control over how and when we exit the platform. So I think once I'd made that decision, then it was just a question of, okay, what do we do now? How do we do this?
Amazing. Yeah, I think there are a lot of things I don't understand about Medium's latest decisions, even now in 2022. But yeah, I guess they have their master plan. I do want to ask you about your platform of choice, which is Ghost. Mm-hmm. And before we talk about your experience with Ghost, walk me through what was your criteria for choosing a platform as the next home for SUPERJUMP.
Well, I still was of the opinion, as of this year, as of now, that I didn't want to host something myself, that I didn't want to have to go and really, build something from scratch. Or I was getting very close, though, to moving down the WordPress route until
lots of headaches.
Yeah,
lots of headaches.
I spoke to some folks that run other gaming websites that moved to WordPress and had some, and these are folks that are software engineers themselves, and they were talking through some of the headaches they were having, and I'm like, yeah, no, I don't want to do that. Like the act of moving away from Medium is itself a very high risk thing to do. So going into it, I guess what I was thinking was this transition is going to be highly risky. There is a very high chance that I could do this and everyone that's working with us could turn around and say, no, we want to stay on Medium. Like, we love you, we love SUPERJUMP, but no thanks. So it was the very real possibility that could have just killed the publication. So I wanted to make sure that if we were going to move, I wanted it to be as much as possible a good experience for me and for all of the writers. I wanted to make sure that we could move to a platform that was demonstrably better for us in terms of like richness of features, ease of use, and my ultimate criteria, which I didn't think existed, but it actually does, is getting all of the great stuff that Medium gives you, plus, like this wide range of integrations and like ease of use and uh, hosting services and all that sort of stuff. Like that's what I was looking for. And there were a few options out there. And I tested a few of them myself and like had a go at kind of setting up something, but they all each of them would kind of fall down in a key area. Like it was either they'd have a great feature set, but in order to get writers on the platform and using it, I would have to make them jump through like 50 hoops, and they'd have to do it would be a really complex process. And I thought, no, it can't be complex for the writers. Like their focus should be to write and do what they do really well, and not have to worry about the technology and not have to worry about setting things up and creating multiple accounts. And like, it's got to be super seamless for them. And so, yeah, I was kind of looking for something that was perfect, that would tick all the boxes, basically.
And then you found Ghost. I also use Ghost, full disclaimer. If we're in a disclaimer thing, I'll also mention that I wrote for SUPERJUMP. I have, I think, 2 pieces currently. So I also know Ghost on a very technological level. But tell me about your experience with Ghost and how is it working out for you so far?
Well, I at the risk of sounding like a Ghost salesman, I swear
it's open source. You can do whatever you want.
I'm not being sponsored or anything, I swear. No, look, it's really ticked all of the boxes in the sense that it's super easy to work with for me as a non-software engineer. I'm actually able to kind of tap into some really, really rich features. Like we just added comments yesterday, and I managed to edit theme files without destroying the whole site. So that's got to count for something. And that's largely down to both Ghost and the fantastic integrations they have and the partners they're working with. So it's really easy for a non-coder, which is awesome. But also, I think it's just incredibly powerful. Like what we're doing with it at the moment at SUPERJUMP is like 5% of what we actually can potentially do in the future. There are just so many different ways that we can use it, and it's one of the things that I really like about it is I think it's very scalable. So the tools and the integrations it provides allow you to kind of scale up and work with bigger and bigger teams and more content. You don't really kind of hit a ceiling from that perspective. So yeah, I think every decision like that, even if you do your research, is always a bit of a gamble, right? Like you don't really know how it's going to work out, but so far so good. I think it's been the right decision.
Okay. I can say, like, in terms of features, I always like to play in all the features of the backend and all that, because that's my job. I'm a backend engineer. But I do have like a lot of things that I tried with Ghost in the past, actually, even before Ghost 5. And it's really easy to add a lot of integrations and all of that, but it also becomes like you need to find some balance. Like I had integration with Zapier with Ghost, which actually opens up a whole slew of
Yes.
integrations.
Mm.
And I had like on my own ghost publication, you would click publish, and then a social media post would be posted to Twitter, Tumblr. A picture would be published to Instagram. A pin would be published to Pinterest. Like a lot of things, and at some point it becomes too much. So you will like need to find your balance.
Yeah.
So that's all well and good, but let's talk about the audience. How was it to retain your Medium followers on the new publication?
Extremely difficult. Is the short answer, and I think I have a couple of theories about that. One is that when you're on Medium, you are one of really hundreds of publications and thousands of individual writers, and your content is being surfaced within the Medium experience, within Medium, across Medium's topics, alongside other publications and other individual writers. So I think one of the factors is that you just get you get a lot of drive-bys, if I can put it that way. Like a lot of people are just naturally seeing your content. They're not necessarily there on Medium specifically for you. And if they're a Medium subscriber, chances are they've probably got, a dozen or a couple of dozen publications they really like that they're reading on a regular basis, and you're just one of them. So I think you get a lot of traffic through that. And also, I think the other thing is when we left Medium, that was really putting us to the test in terms of who are like the diehard readers who will actually follow us somewhere else. Like now we're not part of their Medium subscription. We're not part of their daily reading habits on Medium. They do actually have to go somewhere else to see our content. So I think that those two factors just naturally mean that we were gonna like lose some paint speeding our way through, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And that was something I expected. What I wanted to get to was a stage where our traffic, instead of kind of zigzagging up and down like this, we get to a point where we start to clearly see who are our regular readers, like what is our regular audience look like when it settles down, and then how do we build on that?
Okay. I also noticed that you opened, or rather, you started using newsletters. You started sending posts as emails, which I think is very, very good. Like, do you feel that going forward, sending emails as part of like maybe a weekly or even daily strategy would keep readers coming back?
Look, potentially, like it's always a funny thing. At the moment, I'm just doing a little experiment with emails that are. What's happening is Ghost allows you to, when you publish a story, you can also publish via email, right? But that's like one email, one story. It's a one-to-one relationship. So we're publishing a couple of stories a day. So hopefully we're not spamming people too much at the moment. But I think what probably makes more sense, we'll have to experiment with it and see, is maybe some sort of like weekly digest, weekly update, something like that. I think that it's like a really fine line, because I think there's a lot of value in like going to where people are and finding ways to get content to people. But at the same time, I strongly suspect a lot of people just have like notification fatigue and email fatigue and advertising fatigue. And like, I know I do. I am frequently unsubscribing to stuff because I'm just sick of my email inbox getting clogged with things I won't read. And I've kind of got I've kind of got like a daily budget. It's like a mental budget of how much content I'm going to consume and read, and actually sit with it and enjoy it rather than just binge. So I think it's just going to be something that we have to experiment with, and as much as possible try to be respectful of our readers and not harass them with too many too many notifications and emails.
Yeah. I think like for a publication that publishes every day, it would make sense to do like a weekly thing. But the right answer, quote unquote, would be to actually know what your audience wants.
Yes.
And I think Ghost makes it very easy because you can actually create multiple newsletters. So you can do like a thing where people sign up to an everything newsletter, which they would get everything you publish the moment you publish it, or they would change it and like go to a weekly newsletter, and then they would get your weekly email. So yeah, I think there's a lot of experimentation potential. So yeah, that's amazing to see, and I'm following to see how SUPERJUMP evolves in that regard. Okay, do you think like that SUPERJUMP would one day open a YouTube channel?
I think so. Yep.
That's amazing.
That's one of the goals. Yep.
I would love to see that. Amazing. Okay, so I think that's a good segue to my last question, which is about the future. What's next for SUPERJUMP in terms of whatever you like? Readers, technology, content. How do you envision the future?
I think two things. I mean, I think one is this question of finding an equitable pathway for monetization that feels fair, and that works well for the whole team. And then the other is definitely like, now that we've kind of established ourselves on Ghost, we're largely set up. Like we can, now we can kind of get into a cycle of iteration to get better and better. I think now that we've kind of moved away from Medium and done our own thing, and we're a bit established there, now we can start looking at other avenues for content. And one of those avenues is video, and the other is print. And so they're two things that have quite a lot of lead time. There's a lot of conversations starting to happen around both of those pathways at the moment. But yeah, I think our future is beyond Ghost. It's other mediums and other forms of content as well. I would love to be able to say in a year's time that you can hold a physical print product in your hand that's come from our exceptional writing team.
That's amazing. You would have to arrange for international shipping for that, because I want to get it here in Israel.
Of course,
amazing.
Of course.
Okay, James Burns, thank you so much for talking to me. Where can people find you and the publication online? What do you want to plug?
The main thing is superjumpmagazine.com. Please visit us. Please subscribe. Now you can comment on our stories, which is great if you're a subscriber. And I know that the writers love to see that engagement on their work. And you can find us on Twitter at SuperJumpMag. I think it's the same for Facebook as well. And my Twitter handle is KariboJim, @KariboJim.